Everyone knows BMW, and you probably know of its high-performance M division. You may even know about this car, the Z3 M Coupe, but do you know how it came into existence? I'm going to share with you the interesting backstory, drive it, and tell you if it's really that special. Welcome to the Never-Ending Weekend. In 1995, BMW came out with the second model ever with the Z designation, the Z3 Roadster. It was based on the very successful E36 3 Series. It was in response to the very popular Mazda Miata. BMW thought to themselves, who better knows rear-wheel drive sporty convertibles than us? So they built what turned out to be a tight little sports car with all the classic looks, long bonnet, small chassis, wheels pushed out to the corners, and it sold relatively well. But here's the interesting thing about the birth of the M Coupe. A bunch of gearhead engineers, led by Burkhard Gerschel, loved the Z3 platform, but hated the flex the convertible gave to the rear of the car. So on evenings and weekends, they would get together and work on the coupe in secret and off the books. They wanted to add torsional and structural rigidity, which they accomplished, to the tune of 2.7 times stiffer than the Roadster, and the stiffest BMW to date. All they had to do was convince BMW leadership to build the car. Knowing this, they went into the pitch with a cost-effective, lesser variant, the non-M Z3 Coupe. As a result, everything forward of the A-pillars and much of the interior is shared with the Roadster. In fact, even though the non-M Roadster has a slim rear end, they wanted to save money on body stamping, so the non-M Coupe shares the wide rear fender flares as the M variant.
So they did it. They convinced BMW to produce the coupe, even though some of the directors thought it was, how do I say this nicely, visually challenging. And as driving enthusiasts, we're lucky they did, because they produced one of the best driver's cars ever, the BMW Z3 M Coupe. It was muscular and looked purpose-built. It was an incredibly well-handling car with quick acceleration and a lot of fun to drive. So much so that the then managing director of M Cars said out of all the cars he could drive home, this is the one he picked the most. The Z3 is the first BMW ever to be built outside of Germany. It was built at the Spartanburg plant, still the only assembly facility in the US, South Carolina. Perhaps coupe is not exactly correct. After all, this car is the one that brought back the British-style shooting brake body that faded in the 60s. The line of the roof is reminiscent of the BMW 328 Mille Miglia from the 40s, and the chrome gills recall those of the legendary 507 Roadster. Visually, compared to the Z3 Roadster, you have the fat rear haunch, the offset wider wheels, different front and rear bumpers, quad exhaust, those side gills, different mirrors, and of course, the practical rear hatch. In terms of chassis, it was differentiated by a modified suspension, wider track, lowered ride height, firmer springs and shocks, thicker anti-roll bars, and a reinforced subframe. And it was only available with a manual transmission with a limited slip differential, just like all driver's cars should be.
The first version's engine was different depending on the market. They were all based on the 3.2-liter V6, but Europe got the S50 from the Euro E36 M3, which put out 316 horsepower, while the US spec cars got the lesser S52, good for 240 horsepower. In 2001, all markets were upgraded to one of the most desirable engines of all time, the S54, which also powered the beloved E46 M3. It had 315 horsepower and 252 pound-foot of torque, and was and still is one of the few naturally aspirated engines that achieved 100 horsepower per liter. But because they wanted to avoid eating into the more profitable E46 M3 market, BMW wanted to hamstring the M Coupe initiative. So they detuned the S54 engine from 303 horsepower in the M3, denied it the 6-speed transmission, and gave it taller gearing to dampen acceleration. And because they gave the M Coupe zero marketing dollars, it didn't sell particularly well. But that's okay, it means it's rare. And for someone like me, who loves its distinctive styling and from every angle, the fact that this little driver's car is seldom seen just adds to the allure. So what's it like to drive? Some consider it tricky because of the short wheelbase and all that power going through the rear-wheel drive chassis that was never designed to handle as much. But despite of this, or maybe because of it, if you get it right, it's one of the most rewarding raw driving experiences you can ever have. It's light, and with its 50-50 weight distribution, you can really feel it pivot around itself in corners. It has tremendous mechanical grip, But at any point in time, if you feel like it, you can be a bit of a hooligan if you want. Of course, there's no modern technology, and the cup holders are a nod to a time gone by, but who cares about those little creature comforts? It's all about the drive in this car. The seats are contoured and hold you tight, but they really are comfortable, even for extended drives. And the greenhouse, it's so expansive, you feel like you're surrounded by the outside environment. There are practically no blind spots. The shifter is sublime, and the pedals are in perfect position for heel and toe maneuvers. The high revving engine, the compact chassis, and the compliant suspension all combine to deliver one of the most spirited and engaging driving experiences I've ever had. Across all production years, there were about 6,291 Z3 M Coupes ever made, about 3,000 S50s in Europe, and about 2,100 S52s in North America. As for the more desirable S54, that's about 430 in Europe and 670 here in North America. In comparison, over 15,000 Z3 M Roadsters were made in that same time period. Due to their relative rarity, you hardly see them on the road, and they hold their value pretty well to this day, and they'll probably continue to do so into the future. In a world where car manufacturers are just matching other car manufacturers, car for car, it's uncommon for a car to be driven into existence not by profit margins or marketing spin, but by enthusiasts. Because of that, the M Coupe has no real rival or competition. And though it might have unconventional or even challenging styling to some, it might be the purest driver's car ever made.